Hey everyone, it's Balar, and in this video, I'm going to talk to you about a method to navigate the Crypt Level 1 in Path of Exile's Act 2 to find the lab trial that is required for normal lab. So, the crypt has 4 layouts, and generally speaking, the crypt is shaped like a diamond, and we're going to do a short overview of this in a second. The one thing I want you to know right away from this video is that in the crypt, all 4 layouts are going to have the trial be in roughly the same location, which is on the northeast side of the diamond. So I'm going to pull out just a general look at a layout here. This is like an abstraction, of course, of the layout as we look at it. And so the 4 layouts will have a north layout, a west layout, a south layout, and an east layout. In all 4 of these layouts, the trial is going to be in the northeast corner. That is the simplest rule of thumb I can give you. However, as we look at this, we can be a little more specific about how we navigate to ensure that we successfully get there with less backtracking. So, with that being said, what method can we use to do that? Well, we can pay attention to the shape of the entrance room. As you see here, the entrance room, I would sort of like cut it off at this point as we look at it, like right where these stairs start. And we're going to pay attention to the shape of this entrance room on the mini map here. So by doing that, what we're going to see is we're going to see a shape actually, or I see a shape, and hopefully you'll be able to see this shape as well. To me, the entrance room kind of looks like a fish a little bit, with the entrance itself being the eyes of the fish, and then this little corner here being the fish's mouth. Now we also have the waypoint as well. So the interesting thing is that the left fish layout, for example, because the fish mouth is pointing to the left, will always predict the west layout in the Crypt Level 1. And the navigation method to successfully get to the trial is super easy once you identify the fish, because you just follow the opposite wall of the waypoint around the zone. Now, you might have a little bit of backtracking, but for the most part, it's going to reliably get you there. And you'll learn with experience what portions of the zone to skip to avoid any backtracking that you may have. We also have the right fish over here, where we have the fish shape that points to the right. Now, this predicts 2 layouts, the south layout and the east layout. And it doesn't really matter because the navigation method is going to be the same, where again, we're going to follow the opposite wall of the waypoint around the map, sort of doggedly to reach the trial. Now, this gives us our first interesting rule, which is if you ever see just a single fish mouth, what's going to happen is that you can follow the opposite wall of the waypoint room to get to the trial reliably. That brings us to the double fish, where if you ever see sort of a fish mouth pointing up like this, and then you see a second fish mouth, so 2 fish mouths, we will then sort of change the rule a little bit, and we'll follow the wall that is on the same side of the waypoint around the entire zone doggedly to find the trial. This is what this looks like without terrain. It's a little harder to see without terrain, but nonetheless, I think it's still identifiable enough to be a reliable method to navigate with. So let's actually look at some layouts here real quick so you have an understanding of what I'm talking about. So this is the west layout. You can see here that there is a diamond shape, roughly speaking, to this zone. If we just look at the top half of it, it's like a scrunch diamond, where we get a little smaller on the bottom side relative to the top side, but nonetheless, this trial area is on the northeast side of the zone. So we see that we have this left fish, the fish mouth pointing to the left. It's a single fish. We're going to follow the opposite wall of the waypoint room. So this is going to be the east wall or the right wall, and we're going to follow it doggedly around the map as we go through here. You'll see here that we backtrack a little bit, and that's okay. However, you'll learn to identify this room, and I'm actually going to tell you how to identify it right away, which is essentially this. The first room where you can take a left in this layout, it's not going to be one that you want to go down, especially if it's 2 rooms above the sort of like where you exit this entrance area from. So this is 1 room here, like this little slot right here, and this is 2 rooms here. So if it's 2 rooms above, like where you exit the entrance from, you know this area is going to be a skip area, because this area right here is actually where the sarcophagus is that you need in Act 7, but it's not relevant to Act 2 at all. So we're going to skip this. We're going to follow this around. Now, the reason why this layout is called the hard mode is that we get blocked right here. There is an easy version of this layout where this layout just connects around. Once we get blocked, we're going to follow this blocking wall, and then the first time we can head north, we're going to head north, and then we're going to head left again. If we were to just keep following the wall, you'd see that that's exactly what we'd be doing, and we'll find the trial. This is the no terrain version of this. You'll see that the same rule applies. We see the left fish. We're going to follow the opposite wall, so we're going to follow the right or east wall around. You'll see that 2 rooms above sort of where we exit the entrance, we can take a left. We don't want to take that left because it's a dead end, so we're going to skip it. We'll come to a blocking wall, and we're going to follow that blocking wall around, 1 room up again and to the left. Interestingly, in these west layouts, you see that there's this 2 room gap between the entrance and where the sarcophagus area is that we need for Act 7, and then there's a 2 room gap between the sarcophagus area and where the trial is. So that's how you can always tell, as a further advanced note, when you need to turn up and to the left is you want to make sure that you're at least 2 rooms above that skip area that you did in the west layout. However, you don't want to remember all that. Just follow this wall doggedly around. This is really not that far of a backtrack. This is the easy mode layout, and what you'll see here is you won't get blocked. You'll just be able to connect simply into the trial. The same thing here. This is another no terrain version, and you'll be able to connect pretty simply here. Now we're going to come to the double fish layout. So whenever you see a double fish, it always predicts the north layout. I don't know if I mentioned this with the last layout, but if you ever see a left fish, like so, it will always predict the west layout. Now, we're going to go back to the north layout, and with the double fish, once we recognize it, we're going to follow the wall of the waypoint side around until we find the trial. The nice thing about the north layouts is they're often the quickest layouts because of how the entrance is relative to the position of where the trial is in all crypt layouts. So this is super quick, very easy, very nice. We'll do this with no terrain. You'll see this one as we follow the same side of the waypoint wall around, that we have to backtrack a little more, but we still get there in relatively short order. So those are the north layouts. They're extremely simple to navigate, and as long as you can recognize the double fish, you'll be able to reach this as quickly and efficiently as possible. The next layout we have is the right fish. Now, the right fish, when the fish's mouth is pointed to the right, predicts 2 layouts, the south layout and the east layout. The only way we'll be able to tell which one's which is as we progress through the zone, we're going to pay attention to if we can travel to the south at all. In the south layouts, you really will not be able to. And the major difference between the south and east layouts is how far the trial is away from sort of the entrance. In the south layouts, you generally speaking have to travel a lot further than the east layouts. So here we see a single fish pointing to the right. We're going to follow the opposite wall of the waypoint room around to reach the trial. You'll notice we backtrack here a little bit to check this. However, kind of like with the west layout, this sarcophagus room is always going to be in this area. So eventually you'll learn through experience to just sort of skip that portion of it and keep going along where you know this sort of wall is eventually going to wrap around to. This is another variation of this layout, but with no terrain. We'll follow the opposite wall of the waypoint once we recognize the single fish pointing to the right. And you'll see that we'll eventually get to the trial pretty reliably. Now here is the east layout, which also has a right fish. The difference is that after we get out of sort of this entrance area, we can travel a little bit to the south. So at this point, I know I'm going to be in the east layout. Once I get to here and I say I can travel south, and with the east layout, I can expect that the trial is going to be relatively close to where I am once I get to this point. I won't have to travel super far. You can see the same thing with a no terrain where it's pretty simple. You follow the opposite wall of the waypoint room to get where we want to go with the trial. So that's how we navigate the entirety of Crypt Level 1 to find the trial consistently. So we're going to do a few live runs of this just as a demonstration. I will look already. I see that I have a left fish here, which means the west layout. I'm going to follow the opposite wall of the waypoint room around, and we're going to see if I get an easy layout where I connect straight through or I get blocked. So over to the left here is the sarcophagus room that I was mentioning. I knew to skip that already. It's not that big of a detour if you don't skip it, but I'm going to keep following this wall around. And here I actually get an easy mode layout, which is very rare because in my experience, it's like for every 15 layouts of the west layout, you'll get the easy mode layout like once or twice. So it's not the frequent one to occur. Now, I reset the zone again. I see here that I have a fish pointing to the right, so I know I'm either in the south or east layout, and I'm going to tell that by looking to see if I can go south here. I can go south here. I know I'm in the east layout. That means that the trial is going to be here in relatively short order, and it is as I follow that opposite wall of the waypoint room around. Let's reset one more time. Hopefully we can get the double fish. We got another left fish. Let's run it. So we're going to follow the opposite wall of the waypoint room around. As it goes to the map, this is a sarcophagus room right here. We know we're going to skip that. We see that we're blocked already, so we're just going to keep going. And then here is where this block is. You can see the trial, so you should know at this point you want to navigate over, and then the first time you can go north again and to the left you want to. That is the hard mode layout of the left or west layouts, and that's just because the fact that you have to navigate a little more. So we have another left layout or a west layout with a left fish, excuse me. Here we have a right fish, so it's either the east or south layout. We're going to follow the opposite wall of the waypoint room around. And here, because I can head more south, I know I'm in the east layout, which means the waypoint is going to, the trial room is going to be here in relatively short order, as you see there. Let's fish for one more, pun intended for sure, and see if we can get a different layout. So right fish, follow the opposite wall around the zone. This is the south layout, so this is a different layout. And remember, with the south layout, the trial is going to be a little bit further away than with other layouts. Here's a sarcophagus room, as I mentioned. We'll skip that and we'll head over and around to find the trial. So that's generally speaking how you're going to use the three fish of the crypt to navigate around. And just remember the simple rule: if you see like a single fish, you're going to follow the opposite side of the waypoint in the entrance room around the map to find the trial. Now here, fortunately, we actually got a double fish as we did this reset. And when you have a double fish or a fish pointing upwards, you see two fish mouths here, we're going to travel on the same side of this from the wall that's on the same side of the waypoint. So you see, as we hook around here, we'll just keep following it, and then the trial should be here in relatively short order. This was a little bit of a longer one because we had to connect over this way and backtrack a little bit because we were blocked, but that is okay. So that is the fish method. Now, there is one alternative method that you can use if, you don't really care to remember the fish, or the fish are hard for you to identify with out terrain on. The alternative method involves dividing the entrance room in half vertically and paying attention to where the waypoint is relative to that line. So when we divide the line in half, if the waypoint is a low waypoint, in other words, if it's below the halfway point, what we're going to do is we're going to follow the opposite wall of the waypoint. And then if it is a high waypoint, so it falls above that halfway line, we're going to follow the same side. We are going to do an example of this real quick. So I'll open up the minimap here. I'll divide in half. I see that the waypoint is below the halfway. So I'm going to follow the opposite wall to the waypoint around until I find the trial. As I do so, sometimes you're going to backtrack a little bit, but not a lot. And here you'll see that I get the trial. Let's do one more quickly. So I'll divide the room in half here. I see that the waypoint is on the lower side, so I am going to follow the opposite wall around the zone until I can find my trial. So here, that's the sarcophagus room, as mentioned before. I know to skip that. I get blocked from connecting to the trial, so I'm going to just keep following around. I'm going to, first room I can go north in, I'm going to go north in, and I will take the first left I can after that, and then I will reach my trial. So this has been a video about how to find the trial in Crypt Level 1 with a number of methods. If you don't want to remember any of the methods, just remember it's always going to be in the northeast corner of the map, relatively speaking. Otherwise, use the fish to identify the layout you're in. If you don't like the fish method, you can use the method where you divide the entrance room in half and pay attention to where the waypoint is relative to that halfway line. Thanks for watching and take care.